empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Is Glenville back edition? Excited. We've got a Glenville superstar on the horizon, maybe the best corner in the entire country. He's going to be a junior. Talk a little bit about him. Got the rundown with my boy Nevada. Huge show on tap today. We talk about NFL free agency, talk about the state of the basketball program. Good stuff. So we're going to get into it pretty quick here. As always, we appreciate you guys. We are growing like a weed. It is all thanks to you. So please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave me some comments. Let me know who you like. We're going to talk about, we're going to pick our Buckeye sleepers. Love to hear who you think is going to be the sleeper for this year's team. Maybe someone that no one's talking about who could make a huge impact. So this is going to be a blast. So gonna get right to my man, Nevadabuck. How are you today?
I'm doing good. It's I'm a little sad. Ohio State basketball got put out of the tournament, and it's always kind of a kind of a sad time when that happens because they came close. They teased me with a little late run there against Villanova, and actually had a chance to win that game. And so I'm a little down today, but Buckeye football picking up tomorrow.
Yeah, it's sad hearing my boy Kyle Young is done. A kid I've known since he was a 9th grader at Jackson in Canton, Ohio. I've been very close to Kyle. I think he's a great kid. I told him when he committed to Butler he was making a mistake, and then magically, Chris Holtman comes here, and then magically he flips to here. So things kind of worked out. Kyle's a very special kid. It's sad that he is now done as an Ohio State Buckeye. So we're going to get right into our little show that we got going. We got a lot of good compliments on this. So March Sadness, we're going to talk a little bit about the ouster, Nevada. Obviously they were the underdogs. It was actually a pretty tight spread. It was about 4.5 or so. How close did you think they were? Obviously there was a point where we thought they could pull it off. What went wrong for the Buckeyes yesterday, versus Villanova? It would have been a massive shot in the arm for the program. But, what didn't get done yesterday?
Well, I thought they were a little overwhelmed by the moment in the first half and came back and started playing some great defense in the second half and started clamping down and quit giving Villanova the easy baskets. And frankly, I thought the game turned when your boy Kyle got hurt.
Yeah.
He got what is alleged to be like his 4th concussion in a short period of time. Couldn't return to the game. And the Buckeyes could just never find their mojo after that. They had chances. The lack of a true point guard was glaring at that point. They needed somebody to kind of run the show, and that it wasn't happening. And I hate to bring this up again, but EJ Liddell at the line shooting 1-on-1 down 5 has a chance to make a couple, cut it to 3, 1-possession game, and he clanks it again. And EJ is a great player and great offensively. Really good defensively, going to be a terrific NBA player, but has had some unfortunate luck at the line, and hopefully that doesn't become a thing with him because that was a killer. When he missed those, it was like the air went out of the balloon, and there's no coming back at that point.
Yeah, and traditionally it's one of those stats that people don't talk about enough. But your free throw percentage, obviously, how aggressive you are to achieve those free throws. It's a lot like turnover margin in the NFL. If you win the turnover margin, you have a really good shot at winning. I feel like if you're aggressive enough, you get to the line enough, then you hit a high percentage of those. It's free money when you're at the free throw line. You've got to concentrate, knock those down. And it was tough. So we're going to transition into the question that a lot of people have been asking right now. What's the future of Chris Holtman, Nevada? What are you hearing? What are your thoughts? If you were the athletic director, what would you do at this point?
Well, from my standpoint, and I'm not sure if this is a popular view or a minority view or whatever type of view it is, but I'm a fan of Holtman, and I think I think we have to kind of accept what's our place in the college basketball universe, and in a era of one and dones and everything else like that, it's a different kind of time, and you're seeing even traditional programs that are the traditional powers that are struggling a little bit right now. And I don't think Holtman's done bad. I think he's certainly an above average recruiter. He keeps the program clean, and I'm just not sure we're going to do better. Like who would you hire? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to go try to go get the St. Peter's coach or something like that. There's no obvious replacement for him. And I'd be all in with Holtman and just kind of accept the fact that, this is what Ohio State basketball is. We're occasionally going to be better than average and maybe make it, a Sweet 16 or a Final Four. But, we're not a college basketball power. I don't know if we'll ever be a college basketball power, but I think Holtman gives us the best chance to have a team that's competitive year in and year out and be a good representative of the university. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Holtman thing.
Yeah, and I think in this realm, in the sports realm, and really in any realm, business, whatever, I feel like the decision makers are only as faithful as their options. And when you don't have, like some apparent, again, I always go back to Jim Tressel kind of hanging out there, and then Urban Meyer sitting out there. He's unemployed by his own. He retired from Florida. Sitting out there. A lot of the money people at Ohio State really wanted Urban Meyer after they waxed us in 2006. He's sitting there. You've got a way to, kind of remove a great person in Jim Tressel, and you can bring in a guy who's going to energize the donors, energize the fan base, and people would be really excited to see. You end up winning a national title 2 years later. I obviously that candidate is not out there for Ohio State basketball right now, and I think that is something, that'll play in Chris Holtman's favor. Obviously, that he can potentially get another year. And I'm a big fan. He's a gentleman. He's a great person. I've been around him multiple times. Nothing but kind. Very. I root hard for a guy like this. Who, it was like, honestly, it's like Thad Matta. Thad Matta is one of the true gentlemen of the sport. Guy that didn't do a lot of the stuff that went on at programs. And when he got ousted, it was hard because he's such a good person. He was always great to me when I was a player. I saw him multiple times after my career was over, and it's hard. And I feel like Chris Holtman's from kind of that same ilk. So we're going to transition now into something that has just been absolutely positively insane. The NFL this offseason. Nevada, have you ever seen an NFL offseason like what we're going through in 2022 right now?
No, nobody ever has. It's completely unprecedented. Teams are completely being redone. It's exciting. I mean, it's a really exciting time to be an NFL fan, and like I said, I've never seen such seismic changes happening in the fortunes of teams. All swinging generally centered around the quarterback position, not exclusively, but primarily around the quarterback position, where you're seeing major moves of quarterbacks coming back from retirement or foregoing retirement or moving from their team that drafted them to a new team. Or the Deshaun Watson to the Browns story was just absolutely insane because he'd announced that he wasn't even considering Cleveland, and that Cleveland came back with an offer of more guaranteed money than anybody's had in NFL history, and all of a sudden Deshaun Watson wanted to playing up in the North and playing up in Cleveland didn't look so bad at that point. So no, it's been crazy. And as I sit here right now, you've got Baker Mayfield. I guess my question for you is, what happens to Baker Mayfield now? The Colts just filled their spot, so he ain't going there. And where do you think he's going? And what do you think the Browns are going to get for him?
Well, for me, it's been extremely interesting just because, we've had members on BuckeyeScoop.com they insist that we're going to get like a 2, a 3. And I've been like, we have no leverage. We've absolutely, because we got Jacoby Brissett now too. So we don't even have a spot in the quarterback room for Baker anymore for what his contract's going to be, how disgruntled he's going to be. His contract's going to be up. He's not going to be extended, and he looks around at his draft class. He sees Josh Allen get extended, Lamar Jackson, like guys that are his age that are getting the mega extensions. And he's looking around with Cleveland, and obviously they're not going to extend him. They just, they put all their eggs in the Deshaun Watson basket, which anybody with a brain would take Deshaun Watson over Baker Mayfield. He's 26 years old. He made 3 Pro Bowls. He sat out a year, and his first year he only played 7 games because he tore his ACL. So, really every year that he's actually played a full season or close to a full season, he's been a Pro Bowl quarterback. He's absolutely a phenomenal talent. We saw him when he was at Clemson, when we were at Ohio State. He wins the national championship at Clemson. He's a leader. He's the guy that Urban Meyer was all in on, until the final bell. And, we ended up taking Stephen Collier because we just refused to recruit another quarterback other than Deshaun. And so, we took Stephen, who's a nice kid, but, he's not an Ohio State level talent, but we were kind of stuck, with him. And, but again, you talk about the seismic changes, Khalil Mack to the LA Chargers, Devontae Adams and Chandler Jones to the Vegas Raiders. Like, the Bengals, every fan in America that was a Bengals fan was hoping they would upgrade the offensive line. They get Lyle Collins, who's almost a Pro Bowl level right tackle, Alex Kappa, Ted Karras. They went out and got maybe the second best guard and probably the second or third best tackle in free agency. And when you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you have to be thrilled with the haul that you got in the revamping of the offensive line. It's just been tremendous. Von Miller to the Buffalo Bills. Guys that are literally Hall of Fame players switching teams at an incredible rate, and it's been amazing. So I love the NFL. It never sleeps. The thing that I like.
Where does Baker end up? You make the go. Where? It's musical chairs right now. And there's just not many chairs left. So where does he go? Seattle?
Here's my thing. I think that they're going to have to attach a pick to move that contract to not have dead cap money from releasing him. Seattle's the obvious one if you're Baker and you're looking at the quarterback rooms around the league and where do I have a real shot to play? It's kind of Seattle. It's, I don't, Carolina maybe because they lost out on Deshaun, but do they want Baker when they already have Darnold, who's, in the same class? I don't know. It's hard. Carolina invested a lot to trade for Sam Darnold, and are they burnt? Do they want to get burnt by another kid from that class who, you're going to have this guy for essentially a year because he's going to need an extension, and it's so I honestly think that, we're going to end up getting a future considerations and we're gonna have to attach a 4 or a 5 or a 3 to get rid of Baker because he's got a 1-year deal and we don't want that cap space eaten up. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this shakes out because I never thought that he had any value once we got Watson and then Jacoby Brissett, because you're sitting there and you just don't see it because every team in the NFL knows that our hands are tied right now, and we just gave Deshaun Watson this NBA contract, 5 years, 230. So we got to get rid of Baker somehow. And if I'm looking at Baker, I'm like, well, you guys are kind of screwed right now because you guys have two quarterbacks that you paid good money to. One you paid, number one in the NFL money to, and I just don't know how we get anything for Baker Mayfield. Honestly, at this point, it wouldn't stun me if he's released.
You would need two. You need two teams to be bidding. You know what I'm saying? You need to have two suitors, or even the perception of two suitors. And I'm just not sure there's even two suitors out there. Like you said, Carolina's not going to, that would be really weird. Darnold, trading in Darnold for Baker, that seems like at best a wash. And then you got Seattle, who's going full overhaul. Do you really, is Baker the right guy that you want in the room for that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
and
I think if I'm Seattle, I'm dumping for.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Saints re-signed Jameis Winston today. The Falcons signed Marcus Mariota today. So it's kind of like musical chairs when all the music stops and everybody sits down, and then Baker's still standing up and he thought he had leverage. He thought he could demand a trade, and it's hard to demand a trade when nobody wants you. So I honestly think that this will end up in a release because I think that the Browns for a year will be able to absorb the cap hit of Baker for a year. And because he's up for an extension. Obviously, he's not going to get his option. It's an insane time right now. It's great for the Browns because they actually have a real quarterback now. They have an adult in the quarterback room, and credit to you because you said in December on the phone with me, you said Baker's done in Cleveland because you got a very, very high level source say they're fed up with Baker, they're done with Baker, and here we are. And then you also said on our podcast about Deshaun Watson, I think it's happening. My people say it's happening. It looks like it's happening. Then Deshaun comes out and says it's not happening. And, we did a whole podcast about it because you're like, I think that this is getting done. And then sure as can be, even when it looked like it wasn't, it comes out of the blue and shocks the universe. In terms of shock value, how shocked are you that he ended up as a Brown after publicly, stating that the Browns were out? In terms of trades and 180s, that's up there with anything I think I've ever seen in sports.
Yeah, it was shocking, but the stories that we were hearing about Baker during the offseason were equally shocking. Yes. And you know which one I'm talking about primarily.
The level of stupidity from the one that you're talking about was just, it would shake the room. It was so incredibly stupid, but that's what, I mean,
Yeah,
I always knew he was a clown and a phony, but you told me that story and I was like, he might be one of the dumbest human beings on this earth for what he did. And it was incredible what you
yeah.
told me.
It was incredibly bad judgment, and at that point, I just knew
Yeah.
that you can't. I'm not sure you can come back from that. You know what I'm saying?
No.
When I
Oh
heard
my
that one,
God.
I was like, "It's over. It's
Yeah.
over." And sure
Yeah.
enough, the Browns pulled it off, and they may have had if they didn't get Watson, they were going to suck it up for one more year, but they were done with Baker. The Baker experiment was officially over, and like I said, I hate teasing stories and not being able to tell, but discretion is probably the better part of valor on that one, but it was bad. I mean, that
Yeah.
was a bad one. So,
Yeah.
and like I said, exactly what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
it's like sometimes like you wonder why people are viewed a certain way, and then you hear a story and you're just like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense why all that is like that. So yeah, it's been a wild off season. I mean the Browns are still shopping. They're rumoring to be looking at Donnell Hunter, who's a freak show defensive end from Minnesota, who's got a $20 million a year cap hit. Again, Andrew Berry's looking at Akeem Hicks, the defensive tackle from the Bears, who they released. I mean, he's literally playing Madden franchise mode at this point. So I'm really excited to see if they could pull anyone else off, because the thing about getting Deshaun Watson is it's like getting LeBron James on the Cavs. All of a sudden, it's not quite as, terrible to go to Cleveland when you've got a franchise type face of the franchise leader like Deshaun or like LeBron. Magically, free agents, Cleveland turns into more of a destination city than it's ever been because of having a young superstar like that. So, just to keep this thing moving, go ahead.
Yeah, but one last thing that you don't want dead money on the cap right now. With
No.
You want to be able to move him, because you think about $18 million, whatever his cap is this year. Imagine what they could do with that money. I mean, you take that as dead money. That's money that you could have spent on somebody else. And what can you do with? Where could $18 million buy the Browns? Like you said, they could buy you a really good defensive player. It could buy you an elite offensive player. So they've got to find a way to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, and it's just going to come down to how of a pick do they want to give up, or do they want to eat the cap space? I mean, it's trust me, I want to get rid of him as bad as anybody in the world, but it's like, do you want to give up a second round pick for 18 months? It depends on what their options are in free agency and who potentially could sign, because you could sign a couple of stone cold veterans for $9 million a year and make your team substantially better, specifically at defensive tackle, which I think is their biggest weak link right now. You need to get a veteran and a couple more guys in that room to fill it out, because you bring Clowney back, you get another couple D tackles. I mean, that's a pretty fearsome defense. I mean, it's in a dream world, we'd make a run at Bobby Wagner and shore up the middle of the linebacker situation. I don't think it's going to happen, but he's still out there. I mean, no one's signed him yet. So, and the Browns they're clearly, swinging for the fences right now. So nothing would surprise me in terms of their free agency moves. So, Buckeye sleeper. This was a great thing we kind of did in our pre-show. We were talking about who would be a great sleeper for you. So I'm going to lead off with you, Nevada. Tell me a little bit about your sleeper. He's looking a little filled out, carrying the rock nice, high, and tight, Tony Alford style. Tell me a little bit about Evan Pryor and why he's your sleeper.
Yeah, Evan Pryor is a guy that I've just been kept hearing more and more from my sources at Ohio State about. They really, really like this kid. They're actually starting to design some packages for him. Get him some things where they swinging the ball out of the backfield. Try to get him the ball out there in space and try to do some creative things with him. And I think Evan Pryor is going to be a guy that we're going to be hearing a little bit more about. I think sometimes he's the forgotten man when you've got Trey Henderson and Mayan Williams, but Evan Pryor is making some noise, making some big moves on the depth chart, and he's a guy that if I was an Ohio State fan, I'd be keeping an eye on, because I think he's going to be really good.
Now, how much of the design packages and touches is to keep him happy so that he doesn't enter the portal after spring or after the season? Because that's something that I'm always cognizant of with these young kids is like, obviously, Trey Henderson's going to get a large percentage of the touches. You got, you have Meatball Williams as number 2, Mayan Williams. And then you got the third guy who's got to get something. And reminders to everybody for the Minnesota game, Trey Henderson was the third guy behind Mayan Williams, Master Teague, and then Trey. So, the third guy can emerge and potentially, I don't think he'll unseat Trey Henderson, but he's one injury away from being in the running back rotation. How much of it is due to the portal, Nevada?
Well, I think that's a great point that you make right there. And I think it's something that people have got to realize that whenever you're hearing comments from coaches, whenever you're seeing
Yep.
issues with playing time or anything else like that, there's
Yep.
always the portal in the back of their mind because they've got to keep the guys happy. They've got to keep the guys engaged. And it's never been this way before. So
Yep.
I think some of the traditional rules don't apply regarding what you hear, what you see, what things, how much of it is cosmetic. It's kind of unknowable at this point in time. I have the belief that they want to have three productive running backs in the room, and like you said, the number 3 guy last year was Trey Henderson. So they can certainly move on up the depth chart. But I think it's a great point, an underrated point, and I think one that people need to be aware of whenever they're seeing a comment or a quote or anything attributed about a player is what's the real intention of making a comment like that, because the portal's changed everything.
Yeah, and to me, it was interesting when Trey Henderson brought up the fact that he had a concussion, and he said that he passed the baseline test. The doctors put him back in, and then he moonwalked that back after somebody inside Ohio State said, "Oh no, you didn't have a concussion. You're fine." And then he put out a Twitter statement saying he did. But it's like a kid that's had a concussion has a much higher likelihood to sustain a second concussion with second impact syndrome, and like Kyle Young's obviously almost lost his career to concussions. And, Trey's already had one that at least we know about. And, that's the thing about when you play running back, you're going to take some shots. So you're only 1 or 2 away. And then all of a sudden, this kid's got to be one of the key guys on the offense, because you get another concussion, man, and you're going to be, you need 2 running backs regardless of whatever. And, and really you probably should work 3 through just to keep them, in the program, keep their minds right, keep them focused, get them on special teams, because you're one, concussion or ankle or whatever away from being in the rotation when you're the number 3 running back. For me, I am going to go back in time. I'm going to go Jaden Ballard. So why do I have this photo up where Jaden looks like he's about 13 years old, with Brian Hartline, with Ryan Day, actually in the old office that was the Urban Meyer style office that Ryan Day has since retrofitted with a fireplace and, darker fixtures. I mean, totally gutted this office. So it's funny seeing this. The young man you see on the left is actually Jaden's father, Jamal. And I have known Jamal since, I don't know, 1997, when we were in 8th grade together. We were in 7th grade together and 8th grade together. Maslin Perry, he transferred to Maslin in 8th grade, played against him in basketball, football. I've known Jamal for a long time. And I remember Jaden when he was in a little stroller at Belden Village Mall in Canton. And I was like, "What's up, Jamal?" And I was like, "You got a kiddo now." And, he's pushing him around. And it's just hilarious that now that kid is seriously playing at Ohio State. And you look at him here, obviously this is, I believe, going into his junior year, pretty slight figure, thin guy, super explosive athlete. And then you get the Mickey Marotti magic pixie dust sprinkled in. This is him this offseason. So the kid has put in some amazing work, because he's gotten yoked up, thick, and sometimes you pay attention when a guy like Chris Olave, who runs a 4.27 at the combine unofficially, says that he might be the fastest guy on the team. Because when you have Garrett Wilson run a 4.37, you have Olave run a 4.27, they're saying that guy might be the fastest guy. And he looks like that now. He doesn't look like a little skinny kid. Now he looks like that. That's the guy you want to watch. And I think that it's going to be one of the biggest battles in camp right now, or in the spring ball, is that Z receiver between Julian Fleming and Jaden Ballard. Because I think that they're really trying to give Julian that spot, and I think Jaden is going to do everything he can to take it from him. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this goes in spring ball. He's a Maslin kid, so obviously I'm rooting for him. Known his dad forever, so it's pretty cool. And he's from the 3-3, he's from Stark County, so I've got to root for him. So that's my guy. So I appreciate all the feedback on this segment. We're going to transition now into the film room. So Bryce West, Nevada, there's a rumor that Glenville is back now. And Glenville is a school that has been amazing to us in the past, with guys like Troy Smith, Ted Ginn, Dante Whitner, Marshawn Lattimore, guys that have been fantastic college players. They are now, like Marshawn has one of the largest deals for a cornerback in NFL history. Troy won the Heisman. Teddy was a first-round pick, 14 years in the league. Dante was I believe the 8th overall pick in the draft and lasted, about 10, 12 years in the league. Tell me a little bit about your thought about Glenville starting to get some of the high-level talent back, and what it would mean for Ryan Day to get a pipeline of these premier Cleveland players back to Ohio State, back to where they should be.
Well, I mean, I've often said that, the Glenville connection, when Ohio State kind of reestablished the Glenville connection, or really kind of put a hammerlock on the Glenville connection, is really when Ohio State football kind of returned to prominence. You can kind of trace those two things together, and so I think having a player like Bryce coming out of Glenville is a great sign for Ohio State that they can get a player of this caliber. I mean, when you watch him, I'm sure we can't pull it up. I'm sure you probably don't have it there in the easy access, but I'm always reminded of the great field goal block by Marshawn Lattimore, where he seems like he's 14 feet up in the air blocking the kick. And Bryce has kind of got that ability as well, where he's just an explosive player. He's everything in the quarterback that you'd expect him to be. And Ohio State's he's going to be, in my opinion, obviously the consensus number one player in the state of Ohio, 5-star kid. And he's going to look great in the scarlet and gray, and he's going to really head off that class and really be a good one.
Yeah, and it was funny. One of the as we watched some of his highlights, obviously watched the kick return, watched the explosion. Very willing tackler, defeats the blocker here on the swing pass, about kills this running back. I mean, there's nothing that hurts worse than a helmet right to the knee. But his aggression is unbelievable. His speed is exceptional. I looked at the different ratings. One of the rating services has him as the number 2 corner in America. Obviously, he'll end up being a Buckeye. And it's just real interesting. I mean, a ferocious hitter. I mean, look at this. This is, when you have a corner who isn't scared to throw it up in there, because not every cornerback's going to do this. Like, that's like just because this isn't Madden, there's some corners that aren't really dying to do this right here. He sees the guy, see ball, get ball, knock him backwards, ignite the defense. I'm excited, man. I've had, Bryant Browning was another great kid. He was my backup from Glenville. Great kid. And it was interesting. I don't know if a lot of people know the genesis of why we had such a great pipeline during those Tressel years with Glenville and Ted Ginn Jr., who's one of the greatest human beings I've ever been around. God bless Ted Ginn Sr. He's changed a lot of lives. But Pierre Woods was a kid that went to Michigan, and Pierre was really good player, had an outstanding 2003 season. Obviously, they beat us up there. He had an outstanding game against Ohio State in 2003. And then it was interesting because, he was ready to go pro. And then all of a sudden in 2004, they changed his role. He was more of a situational guy, didn't play as much. By 2005, he was just kind of like an afterthought up there. And it really crushed his NFL stock. And after that happened, Ted Sr. literally said, as long as he's around, he's not going to send another guy to Lloyd, to Lloyd Carr for what he did to Pierre. So that was something that I always thought was interesting, some backstory as to why all of a sudden every high-level kid went to Ohio State. Now, they did get Frank Clark, who, is making a ton of money in the NFL right now, and they had Willie Henry, a D tackle, but the pipeline was pretty sealed up for a while, especially under Tressel. It kind of faded a little bit under Urban. He didn't quite have the relationship with Ted Sr. that Tressel had, where, they're almost like brothers. But yeah, any thoughts as we watch this tape of Bryce? I love watching an explosive corner that can hit, man. Those guys change the game, and this kid is that guy. What do you think, Nevada?
Yeah, just having guys like this, when you talk about the Dante Whitners and you talk about the Marshawn Lattimores and those elite corners that are, such good hitters, punt returners, he's just in the classic mode of every one of those guys. And he's a kid that he's a program changer, because those are the kind of the positions that can change your defense. Lockdown corners that can do it. I mean, you look around the league, that's what it's about. When Ohio State's been good, they've had great corners. When they've been not so good, they've had mediocre corners. And I think your team's only as good as your corners. And he's a guy that can come in day one and play, right away against the best. And he's got that kind of ability. And I couldn't be more excited about him.
Yeah. And with you talk about the hitting and it changing the program, Dante Whitner to me might be the best safety to ever play at Ohio State. And I know people are going to scoff at that because, Mike Doss is 3-time All-American, Malik Hooker. But Dante went 8th overall in the draft as a third-year junior, and he ran a 4.3 at the combine. absolute speed demon, ferocious hitter, one of the smartest players I've ever been around. And like, in 05, when we had an exceptional defense, we had AJ Hawk and Mike Kudla and Bobby Carpenter and Schlegel and all those guys. Dante was the guy to me that really made it go, other than AJ, because nobody, you couldn't run bubble screens against him because he was like a missile, like a homing missile. He would kill guys. You literally couldn't do it. And the way he would track the ball was outstanding. And, when we got dusted by Florida in 06, I thought like something in my mind mentally, I was like, if we had Dante, I'm not saying he's a 27-point player, it was 41-14, but Dante was the kind of guy where you couldn't run a lot of the horizontal runs, a lot of the bubble screens. Like Dante was a guy that would wreck those. So, if Urban tried to do that against Dante Whitner, it wouldn't have worked out very well. But, that's neither here nor there. But, I always had exceptional respect for Dante. And I'm glad Glenville is starting to come back. Ginn Academy is starting to come back to prominence because, it's good to have a good Cleveland school that we have a pipeline to that produces some of these phenomenal athletes that we've had over the years. So, with that, in closing, who does he remind you of Nevada when you're watching this tape? Is it Marshawn? Is it Dante? Ted Ginn, maybe because Ted Ginn was coming in as a corner. Who does Bryce remind you the most of?
Yeah, he's definitely Marshawn Lattimore, Bradley Roby, type of corner for sure. He's kind of got that long strider like Ted, though, when he gets the ball in his hand offensively. I mean, again, nobody's Ted Ginn because Ted Ginn was from Krypton or whatever planet he was molded on. But no, this guy's explosive. He's got all the attributes, and he's long, got the long arms, the strong hands, and he's going to be a good one. This guy can't, barring injury, knock on wood, he's a can't miss.
Yeah, and most of the recruiting services have him rated as a top 10 player in the nation for his class. He's only going to be a junior, so he's a class of 2024. So it's going to be an extra year before we see him. But he's something to be excited about down the road. I was really excited to see his film and the fact that DeVille is back. So it's awesome, man. I'm excited about this. So we're going to wrap this one up. This has been another fun show to do. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. And BuckeyeScoop.com is absolutely on fire right now. We have the pads going on for spring ball tomorrow, Tuesday. We'll have full wrap-ups of what went down in practice. I expect it to be a very physical practice. They had a workout today to get kind of the margaritas and the mojitos and the chicken tenders and nachos out of their system from spring break that the kids all were eating last week. And now now it's game time. These guys are going to be, they're going to get the screws put to them in spring ball. It's always like training camp. There's no game on Saturday, so you can really give it to them a little bit. And I'm excited to hear who does well, who steps up. There's a lot of open spots on both sides of the ball. There's going to be a lot of competition on both sides of the ball for those spots. Obviously we've got Justin Fry coaching the O-line, so that'll be fascinating to see, how his fundamental changes and schematic changes, affect what we do offensively. And we have a whole new defensive staff. So everyone's excited to see what Jim Knowles can do, get that defense fired up, get it back to being the silver bullets again. So I'm excited for spring ball. There's no better time to join BuckeyeScoop.com. We have the most active message board in the industry. We're driving a ton of news. We were first with the Harry Miller news today that he was on the Today Show. We've got a lot of really good stuff cooking right now. So we appreciate you. Again, leave us a like, give us some good feedback in the comments section. Maybe, if you got a thought on who Bryce West looks like to you, if it's Marshawn, Dante, leave that. And if you think where Baker Mayfield's going to go and you're brave, leave that too, because we love those comments and it's really fun to interact with you guys and tune this site up. So appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We can't do it without you, Buckeye Nation, and we will see you on the next episode of the Scoop World Order.